again, thanks for staying with us for our next talk. We have Mr. Per Wassén. He's the president and CEO at PowerCell Sweden, and the topic today is PowerCell and commercial vehicles. Thanks very much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So first of all, I wanted to just make a note and talk a little bit about you and your background. You have a master's in science and physics, a BA in economics and law studies, and you worked for Volvo for about 20 years in corporate startup and business development, and now you're with PowerCell in Sweden. So could you please tell us about your company, PowerCell Sweden?
Okay. Thank you for coming here. PowerCell Sweden is a spin-out from the Volvo Group. The Volvo Group started approximately 20 years ago in a small group, and in 2008 we took the decision to start a company, and then the progress has been to spin it out from the Volvo Group. And Volvo is not a shareholder today. We are also listed on Nasdaq, so we have 13,000 small shareholders and three big who are the main owners today. So that's the situation, and the situation is also that we have the largest fuel cell laboratorium in Sweden, and we intend to start the production up in Sweden in the beginning and then move it later on closer to the customer in China or in US or in Germany as well.
And can you tell us about your products, first of all, your PowerCell products?
Yes, we stand for quality, and that means that we have been developing the products over many, many years. And the main issue is to have quality and to have cost. So therefore we have designed it, and we have three platforms. One is called S1, 1 to 5 kilowatt. One is called S2, 5 to 25 or to 35 kilowatt even today. And one is from 40 kilowatt up to 100 kilowatt. And those platforms could be used also as modules in different customer applications. So the idea is to use these three, add volumes, and in that way create synergies and create scale of economic, and really to have a very cost-effective stack.
And so speaking of applications, what are the applications for those three areas?
Yes, I mean, there is a lot of applications, and you really need to dig into different customer segments and to select those segments which you believe will come first, so to say, the low-hanging fruit. From our background, we are very much in the automotive. That means that we cover car, and we have there a very important project called AutoStack Industry, where we, together with the big four German car manufacturers, are developing the next generation stack. One common stack design which could be used for those car manufacturers, and also to take care that those could be produced in very big high volumes. But this application could also be used in buses and in trucks. And we also see that we have different off-grid applications, construction equipment or forklifts even. And then, of course, marine side is of interest, and the other segment is stationary. So if we can have the same stack both on stationary application as well as we have in commercial vehicle, for instance, we could add volume and in that way have the most cost-effective stack.
And is there one that's more prominent of the three, or are they pretty equal?
I think that it's different in different regions, so to say. We see that the Chinese are moving very fast right now, mainly on their system, that they will have a lot of governmental money into this. On the US, it's mainly California. It's more driven off business case, and I will come back to that later in the presentation here. And here in Europe, we are still used to have a lot of European-funded projects. That means that we are, I would say, a little too slow here in Europe.
That's correct. And speaking of business case, what business case can be made from this, in your opinion?
I mean, today the theme is commercial vehicles, so let's look into that and see what we are doing. The first one is around forklifts and or off-grid applications. There is in Sweden big companies like SSAB, a big steel producer, who are forced to leave fossil and move over and use hydrogen in their production. And because of that, that they now will have hydrogen on their sites, there is no reason why you should have big forklifts running with diesel engines. So there we are doing tests right now where we have to take care of the total system, including the tanks, the fuel cell system, and the fuel cell stack. The idea is to really replace all diesel engines in these off-grid vehicles as a start. So that's one typical application, mainly because driven off that customer would like to get out from fossil in their main production. The other area is, of course, within automotive, and that I said that we are working in this auto stack industry, but we also see that we could move into commercial vehicle in that sense that we could use what we call the S3 stack in different track application. So we have been running tests where we use it together with batteries, and in that sense it will be a sort of range extender. That means when the battery capacity go down, the range extender will be there because of we refill the battery from the fuel cell stack. So activities is ongoing there, and that's one area where, for instance, one important customer in US, Nikola, have really launched that they will now set up a lot of fuel cell stations. They will have big class 8 trucks with 1,000 horsepower, and it will be run with our S3 stack. The business case there is in fact that the cost, if you're, I have 20 years within Volvo Truck. That means that if you look into the fleet owner situation, you have the cost for the truck, you have the cost for the driver, and then you have the fuel, and the big part is fuel. So if you can reduce the price for the fuel, you can really have a very attractive business case for the fleet owner. And that's the reason why Nikola will be so successful, because they will reduce the total cost of ownership between 20 to 30%. So that's what's going on right now in US, in parallel with all other activities with the cars in the California area. The third area is China, and there I will say, watch up. China will be the main volume market in the future. And the reason for that is that China have the big governmental behind that they really want to get into this. The idea is to set up 1,000 fuel tank stations, and they will give governmental money to those who buy fuel cell cars, fuel cell buses, and fuel cell trucks. So if you will buy a fuel cell car, you will have approximately 40,000 euro from the government. Or if you buy a small distribution bus, it will be 60,000 euro. And then if you buy a commercial vehicle, if a distribution truck, it will go up to 100,000 euro. And with that incentive, and also the fact that they are taking away the incentive for batteries, there will be a big change in China. And the reason why China have come to this situation is that they have really concluded that there are no way that they can put up charging stations for all battery cars in Chinese cities in the future. So that's the big driving in there. And from our side, we are now, our S2 stack is up and running in different bus application as a range extender. And we will start with the bus because they are in a city close to one tank station, but over time it will of course also be truck application and also car application. So 2025, according to those Chinese 5 years plan, 2025 they will be a big export company of fuel cell cars. That means if we in Europe still here are only driving with battery cars and looking for charging stations, there will be a big change, and that will be a big challenge for the European automotive industry.
Is there, so as far as trends, are there any trends in the market that you can think of and share with us?
I mean, there are different trends in different regions. In China, they are really forced to have clean air. If you go and visit Chinese cities, you really understand that it's not healthy. They really need to do something. They are number one with battery cars. They have come to the conclusion that there are not possibility to set up charging stations, and the grid capacity is the reason why they now change. If you look into California, they are also driven of the fact that they need to cut down the CO2, but they have also recognized the big issue around the NOx and to get out of the diesel cars, not mainly the diesel car in US because it's very few diesel cars, but really to get out from the fossils itself. In Europe, we are much more now in an area where we have recognized the CO2 problem with the climate change, but we are so much focused on the health situation in the cities to have those cities with a lot of diesel cars. So here we are more facing the fact that city after city will decide to have diesel-free zones. And that will lead into a huge electrification from the car producers. The first step in this evolution will be batteries. And when then they will come to the same conclusion as the Chinese have come to, that there are no grid capacity in the European cities, then they will take the next step to move into hydrogen. And it will go very fast now. It will be a disruptive change because city after city are really challenging why should we have diesel car and risk our citizens' health driving those diesel car in our city.
So, and speaking of that, of any other trends that you see, what is it, in your opinion, there's been a lot of talk about how there's been a lot of talking and not enough doing as far as hydrogen and fuel cells. What's your take on that?
I mean, there have been a lot of problems over time around the development of the fuel cell stack itself. It's a question about durability, but then cost is the issue. But if now the volumes will rapidly increase, then you will have a situation where the cost disadvantage for fuel cell will go down rapidly. And the main driver for this now is in fact the Dieselgate, the situation that it's not okay to have a diesel car in the European city anymore. Therefore, they start with electrification. The first step is batteries, but in the end, the final solution will be fuel cells.
Hopefully in the next 7 years?
I hope so. I will fight for it, definitely.
Excellent. Are there any questions from the audience at this time? No? Okay. 1 second.
Yes, hello Per. Björn Aronsson from Hydrogen Sweden. I would like to listen to your ideas about the stationary applications, the benefit from the volumes you talk about for the vehicle applications. When in time do you see that this will also scale up in the energy system?
Okay. Also, there are different areas on Earth how fast this will go. In areas where you have a very low price of electricity, it will take more times. But over time, when the electricity price start to change, when it's very windy or very sunny, the electrical price will go down based on that will be the demand and supply is not meeting each other. So on windy days in Denmark, for instance, you have to pay for producing electricity into the net. And when now, for instance, Germany will close down their nuclear stations, this will also occur in Germany. So therefore there is a need for storage. And the best way for that, most environment friendly, will be using electrolyzer, use the wind power and solar panel, produce hydrogen, and then when it's not windy or it's that it could be in Sweden dark day, you use that hydrogen producing electricity. So I will say as soon as the electrical price will go down a little, mainly also on the fact that they will close down nuclear stations. There are some other driving forces here, and that is the price for the net. In some countries, the price for the net will increase, and that will also drive this change. More and more people would like to be off-grid. Then the third way is that a lot of cities will really take their own step into this area, saying that our city should be 100% environment. That means that we will produce our own electricity. And with that, they will set up a lot of solar panels wind power in the neighborhood, and then they need to store it as well. That will go and move this into stationary applications. And the best thing there for us is that we could use the S3 stack, which we use in either commercial vehicle or car application, and use that as well for stationary. So it will be add-on in volumes, and therefore the price will go down. That was a short answer.
That's great. Thank you very much. Just we have time for one last question. What is the takeaway from what would be the takeaway or most important points that you'd like to relay before we go?
I mean, I've been working now over 10 years in this field, and I have for every year the speed up, the sense of urgency. We have the technical solutions here. There is a big crisis on Earth with this increased heat, and also the CO2 level is increasing every day, in fact. So hurry up, start the change, and save the planet.
Thank you. That's very nice. Very nicely put. My thanks to Mr. Per Wassén, President and CEO at PowerCell Sweden. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Thank you.